Hello, I'm Grandin Gill from the Muma College of Business at the University of South Florida, and in this video I am going to talk about formatting submissions to the two Muma College of Business journals, the Muma Case Review and the Muma Business Review. So here's a quick overview of what I'm going to be covering. First, I'm going to provide a little bit of background. Specifically, we'll talk about the motivation for these templates, what a template actually is, and some of the differences between the two Muma journals, the Muma Case Review and the Muma Business Review, which use a slightly different template styling. I will then talk about how you actually go about using these templates. First, where to find them, how to load them. I'm going to emphasize the fact that you should read the templates, which contain a lot of information about the different submission types for each journals. And then I'll talk a little bit about using Microsoft Word styles, which is a very important element of using the templates effectively. Finally, I'll talk about some special formats associated with the template. This includes the formats for figures, for tables, how you would include references, and for the Muma Case Review only, I'll talk about the special case of exhibits. So before diving into formatting, it's useful to provide a little bit of background, and the first thing I want to talk about is our motivation for using templates. Both the Muma Case Review and the Muma Business Review require that you make your submissions in a very specific format, which is done using a template. And the reason for this is that both journals are open access journals. They do not charge a submission fee. They do not charge a fee for publication. And as a result, a great deal of work is done by volunteers. We want to make that work as efficient as possible. And so as an author submitting a manuscript to these journals, by using a template, you make it easier for reviewers to review it. It's probably going to be easier for you to think about whether or not your submission matches our formatting. And then when it comes time for publication, it is going to be much, much easier for us to reformat what you have submitted into a PDF file for online publication, and in the case of the Muma Business Review, for print publication at the end of the year. Now, an obvious question that you may want to ask is, what is a template? And a template is simply a MS Word document. And a true template is a document in Word. It would be a DOTX file, for example, that you load into Word and then save as a document. And what the template contains is specific formatting for different types of styles, such as the normal style in which you're going to be typing your text, the style that you'll use for the different headings, and so forth. By using a template and not bringing in other fonts and formats and so forth, it makes it much, much easier to know how long an article is going to be, what it's going to look like when it is actually published. And it also avoids a lot of potential errors and makes proofing a little bit easier. So we will not accept an article that is not submitted using a template. We'll simply send it back to the author and ask them to move it into a template. Final background topic is the differences between the two Muma journals. Both of the journals use templates. Both of the journals require template submissions. Now, in the case of the Muma Case Review, the template is actually going to look exactly like what the final publication will look like. So in a sense, when you're creating a case for the Muma Case Review using your template, you are actually more or less setting up the final layout. Now, there may be some modifications. We might, in the final production stages, do some things like change the spacing between lists and so forth to make it a little bit more aesthetic. But basically, what you see is what you get for the Muma Case Review. For the Muma Business Review, the template is much simpler, and each type of submission has its own template. And the main reason that we use the templates here is to require you to adopt specific formats for different article types. And this is important because for the Muma Business Review, what we will be doing is taking what you have submitted and bringing it into a desktop publishing programming and doing special formatting to make those articles look very professional. So when you submit to the Muma Business Review, your submission is not going to have the same layout as the final publication, but by doing it using a template, it will be much, much easier for our staff to do the required layout. Let's begin with a quick demonstration of how to load a template. And the first thing you're going to need to do if you want to load a template is go to the Muma websites. And so what I'm going to do is load up the Muma case review site first, and we'll demonstrate it here, and then we'll do exactly the same process for the Muma Business Review. Because the template is a submission, you would look for it under Authors, and under Authors you will find a link to the specific templates. Now the Muma case review only has two, a template for cases and a template for technical notes. And more details on these specific templates and what is a case can be found on the website. In this particular presentation, we're going to focus just on the mechanics. So say I wanted to open the Muma case template. If I click here, it's going to take me to a posting that gives two formats. One is a true template format, the .x format, and the other is a doc format, which you might end up using if you've got an older version of Word. The .tx format should work pretty well for 213 and higher. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose this format, and I'm just going to click on it. It's going to open. I am going to allow it, and it will download it, and then it will basically wait for me to bring up Word. And here is the specific template. And in the case of the Muma case review, this is a template that is going to be a what you see is what you get template. So if you look through the template, it's going to look exactly like what a case should look like, at least structurally. Now, with all the Muma Journal templates, the template itself has a lot of information about the submission. So you might want to keep an extra copy of the template around. Now, I am going to enable editing of this so that I would be able to save it. And then what I would do is I would come in and I would actually do a file, save as, and I would go to some particular folder. I guess it doesn't matter here where I'm going to put it. I'll just put it somewhere on my drive here. And then instead of saving it as a template, what I would do is I would save it as a docx file. And that would allow me to start editing it like a regular Word document. And when you work with the template, you're just going to overwrite everything that's in there. But what the template is going to give you is all the styles and things you need. So the Muma case review has what you see is what you get templates. The Muma business review is slightly different. So what we'll do is we'll go over and we'll bring up the Muma business review. And here I'll bring this up. And here, once again, you go to Authors to find the template. And here we've got a whole bunch of different templates. And in the Muma Business Review, the template is more of an organizing document and a document that gives you the proper styling. It does not necessarily look like what the final article will look like, because the final article will be typeset. But so we'll just take a, say, a research case study template. And in the case of the Muma Business Review, there's actually a video that describes the template. And for the Muma case review, because we aren't as strict in our formatting, what we do is we just give you a Word document, and you can use that Word document. And you can also watch the video on the template. So we open the Word document, Then we bring up Word, and we have to allow it. And here you see the Muma case review template, and it gives you an overview of what you're trying to do. It also gives you an idea of what the reviewers are going to be looking at. And then it gives you specific instructions, and you just follow the formatting in the template. And again, there are videos on each of the Muma Business Review templates with respect to the specific content. Here, what we're mainly interested in is how you load it. So in this case, it's a docx file. All you would have to do is do a file and then do a save. You have to enable editing, and then you would do a file and save as to move it to a specific folder, and we don't need to do that. And you want to obviously give it the name of your whatever you're trying to do. I've said this before, but I will say it again. The Muma Journal templates, whether for the Muma Case Review or the Muma Business Review, contain a lot of information about each type of submission. You will be doing yourself a big favor if you read the templates before you start writing. What I would also note is that you can save a copy of the template to your local drive so you can access it at any time, but if you forget to do that, you can always download a fresh copy from the websites. If you look at a Microsoft Word document, it gives you a nearly infinite possible set of selections for things like the name of the font you use, the size of the font, the spacing between paragraphs, the tab settings, the margin settings, and so forth. Unfortunately, that infinity of choices can make it extremely difficult to produce a consistent look for the documents that are finally published. So, what we do within our templates is we provide you with a set of styles. And what a style does is it makes all those decisions for you. So, for example, the normal style tells you what the basic text is going to look like. The heading styles tell you what your headings are going to look like, and so forth. And what we want you to do is to use those styles and avoid doing things like changing your font, changing spacing, changing sizes, and so forth, because those will make it much, much harder to publish the document. Now, the styles come with the template, and they're actually very, very easy to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up a Word document that I created simply by downloading the Muma Case Review template for a case and then saving it under the name Demonstration docx. And what we're now going to do is take a look at styles and also take a quick look at how you might import pre-existing text into the document. So if you've read the template, you'll know one of the things that we encourage you to do is when you start writing a case or an article or a technical note, to actually start just using the template and overwriting what is there as needed. And since there's a lot of useful stuff in the template, you don't have to erase the whole thing, just erase each piece of it as you add stuff. So if you take a look at the Muma Case Review template, and the same is true of the other templates, here what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scroll down a little bit so you can see this. It contains actually a case about someone writing a case, and that's what you're going to be overwriting. So what you might do first is you might overwrite the title. Now, you'll notice I've selected the title here, and if I were to look here under styles, what I would see is that the style of the title is heading 1. Obviously, I don't want to change that, so I'm just going to go demonstration here. Pardon me while I look down. And then I can scroll down, and if I take a look and were to click here, if I looked under styles, I would see that this is the normal. Most of your text is done with normal style. Now, I have to keep this Word document relatively small so that it will fit on the screen. But if I expand it, what you'll see is the styles actually sits there on this bar. So as I open up past the edge of the screen capture, what we see is we actually can see the different styles here, and I can open them up to see what's actually selected. And the only styles that you're going to typically be using within a document is possibly caption for figures, exhibits for cases, and the different headings. Notice that when I move over the styles without selecting them, the text shows you what it's going to look like. Obviously I don't want to change this style, so I'm going to basically leave that there. So normally when I'm writing, I simply use the style bar and apply the styles as necessary. Within the Muma Journals, you're allowed to do things like indenting with these. You can create bullet lists and so forth. And so there are, you can do stuff like that, but you should never be changing the font. You should never be doing things that vary, like the font size and the different spacings, because that will make it much, much harder for us to finally take the thing to publication. And in the case of the Muma case review, the document that you're creating is pretty much what the final document is going to look like, with a little bit of later styling from us. So I'm going to bring this whole thing back so that we can see it. And so, what I would do is, if I were writing this, here is my opening. Notice that I just overwrote what was there. If I wanted to make a heading, what I could do is I could type next section. Pardon me while I look down. And then these sections are done in a heading style. Heading 1 is the actual document title. That's the only place it's used. And if I come over here, this would be heading 2 would be the next thing. So I click on heading 2, and you notice it's set up. Don't try to come up with your own heading styles. Just simply, you see I select this. You can see it's an Arial 14. That's what the style tells it to be. So basically, doing this, all you really need to worry about is make your normal text normal. If you need to italicize something, say I wanted to italicize MCR, that's okay. But otherwise, simply use the styles for the headings and so forth. Now, it's all well and good for us to say you should start writing your manuscript from scratch using the template, but what if you've got an existing manuscript that was written in some other style and you want to bring it into the template? This is something that requires a little bit of care, and it's going to require a little bit of work on your part, but it's not terribly difficult to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to imagine that somewhere I've got a manuscript which has some text that I want to insert here after my opening. And in this particular case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose something that has some pre-existing formatting. So I'm just going to go to our website. Let's see if I can find this. Here is an example of some text that has a bunch of existing formatting that is probably not going to match the formatting of the template. So I'm going to do a Control-C to copy it. Then I am going to go back to the template. And the first thing I'll do is just do a normal paste. So I'll click that normal paste. And what happens is all of this stuff is formatted in ways that would be very hard to back out. So that's kind of a mess. So what I will do is I will click on undo, and then I will paste it purely as text. And so if you open the paste option in Word, there is a paste special option or just text only. And so if I click on text only, then what happens is everything comes in the normal font because I pasted it into a place where there was a normal font. And then what I could do is I could come and basically change the formatting as I needed to make it correct. So this was a list. So I might come over here and basically change this to a list. I might come over here, make this item 1. I might have to delete some stuff because when you paste stuff in as text, any numbers and stuff here, I see this was a sub list, so I might indent this thing in a couple of places and so forth. But once again, what I have avoided is creating a formatting nightmare for myself. So that that is typically the best way to paste things in as text. Now we'll back this out again, and sometimes you're pulling stuff in from sources that have graphics and all that stuff, and you just want to get the text in. And sometimes the paste text does not work the way you want, and you want to edit the text a little bit before you paste it in. A really good solution for that is to open Notepad. Notepad is a Windows accessory, so I'm going to open Notepad now, a blank Notepad. And the only thing it allows you to do is text. So I'm just bringing it in here. So that if I paste something into Notepad, what I can do is I will get just pure text. And one of the things that Notepad allows you to do is if you have word wrap off, which it is now, every paragraph becomes a single line. So what you can see is if there are any problematic things. For example, here there wasn't a carriage return here. So what I might want to do is I might want to stick in a carriage return so that the list actually comes out like a list. And I can edit things in Notepad, and then when I'm done, I can come in and paste them. So I could basically do a Control A to select everything, a Control V. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that, so I'll do an edit, undo. Control C, Control A selects everything, Control C does a copy, and then, and I could also use the edit menu. The edit menu will allow me to do the same thing. Then I can come back into my Word document and I could paste this, and because it is purely text-based, I don't have to worry about paste special. I can just paste the thing in. So using this technique, what you can do is you can keep things tightly formatted according to the template, and that is going to make it much, much easier for you to work. So key takeaways from this: whenever you want to change formatting, use the styles. Whenever you're pasting things in from formatted sources, use the paste text option. And if you've got a bunch of stuff that you want to paste in and you want to edit it, bring up Notepad, a Windows accessory, paste it into Notepad, make your edits there, and then you can paste that into Word easily. Within the Muma Journals, you will frequently want to put a diagram or a picture within your manuscript. And we refer to these as figures, and there are some very specific rules about formatting figures within the journal. First, for figures, we put a caption on the bottom, and you will normally do this by right-clicking the image that you've pasted in and then identifying that you want to insert a caption. Another important thing that you would do is you would always number them sequentially. Now, if you insert the default caption into each one of your figures, it will automatically be numbered. So that will ensure that you don't accidentally miss numbers. But you got to be careful because you got to make sure there's consistency with your figure numbers and the way you refer to them in the text. We strongly encourage you to use image formats. Image formats are things like JPEG, PNG, that's Portable Network Graphic, GIF formats. Now, the reason that we encourage this is because during the process of reformatting the case or the article for submission, things like word drawings simply tend to fall into different pieces, and different pieces of the diagram don't end up in the same place. They do not move very well. They do not size very well. Now, if you're in PowerPoint or if you're in Word, you can always take one of these diagrams, right-click it, and save it as a JPEG or a PNG. It typically doesn't matter which of these you use. And that way you can edit, that way we can resize it and edit it as we need to in order to make for final publication. Another thing that you want to think about is testing it for gray shade. If you've got a graphic image in Word, one of the things that you can do is you can actually recolor that image in order to see what it's going to look like in gray. And that's important because when it's printed in paper, chances are it's going to be printed black and white. To illustrate this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my sample biography from the template, and I'm just going to click on the image here. And what you'll notice here is when I've clicked on the image, a format appears on the menu. So I go to Format, I go to Color, and I go to Zero Saturation. What that does is it shows me what it's going to look like in gray. I can also I can also do some adjusting there. I can do some adjusting there. And so there's a whole bunch of ways that I can adjust the pictures. But the big thing is you want to make sure that the picture is going to be understandable when it's in grayscale. And that's particularly important when you're putting in graphics where there are a lot of colors that might be used to distinguish, say, different bars. And when they're printed in black and white, their bars are all going to look the same. Finally, and this is very important, what you need to do is assume that your particular figure is going to be moved within the text. Therefore, it is very important that you reference the figure by its number within the text. Any figure that isn't referenced doesn't belong in the text. And try to avoid terms like above and below because it might actually change during final formatting. That is particularly true for the Muma Business Review, but even in the Muma Case Review, we may sometimes want to move a figure around just to use space more efficiently and to make the case appear more aesthetic. The rules for tables are pretty similar to the rules for figures, except the caption is on top of a table as opposed to being underneath it, and you don't necessarily use the caption tool for tables. A lot of times I will just use regular text. Tables should be numbered sequentially, as is true for figures. If the table is very complex, you want to use an image. So basically then, even though it's a table in form, you're going to basically do a screen capture and crop it to make it a PNG file, for example. And that way it doesn't get distorted as it moves around. Just to give you an example, I will bring up a table here. This is a table that I created, and right now this is within the template, and you can see it's got its caption on top. I create a header column. We don't require all this, but at any rate, at this size, the thing looks pretty good. Now, if I were to suddenly start bringing the table size in, say, to fit a column within the Muma Business Review, what could happen is the table could become significantly distorted and it might not look the way you want it to. When you bring it as an image, you can be sure that the whole table is going to stay together, but it might have to be moved before or after particular text, and it might get very small depending upon the journal. So if the table isn't too complicated, it's probably better to keep it in text. But if the table is very complicated with, merged rows and stuff like that, then you might possibly decide it's better to actually bring it in as a graphic. But as long as it looks like a table, you're still going to want to put the caption on top. The rules for paragraph spacing and fonts are somewhat relaxed for tables. We don't encourage you to go wild, but the default fonts and the normal style in the Muma templates includes an 11-point space after each paragraph. Now that is often unnecessary in the table. You as the author do not have to worry about changing that, but if the aesthetics bother you, within a table you are allowed to do things like make the font smaller to get it fit and remove some of the paragraph spacing if it makes it look better. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. Finally, assume your tables could be moved. So again, as with figures, try to avoid terms like before and after, or below and above, since the table might not necessarily be there when the article is completed. Especially for individuals who are relatively new to academic research, the notion of referencing can be a little bit intimidating because some people are very, very picky about this. Now, for the most part in the Muma Journals, we are not incredibly picky, but we do want references to articles and websites and so forth to conform to the APA, that's the American Psychological Association style. And the reason we chose that style is it's just one of the most common styles, and it's also the one used by the Informing Science Institute. If you're interested in figuring out how to format references, we typically provide some examples in the template, but if you're not sure how to deal with something like a website, a really good place to go is the http://apastyle.org, which has summaries for lots of different reference types. But actually, if you just Google APA format, you'll find lots and lots of references, and the idea is that if you include a reference section within your manuscript, and some of the time you'll do this for cases, but virtually all the time you will be doing this when you're submitting to the Muma Business Review, just keep it in that format. Otherwise, you're going to have to reformat it before a final publication, and also sometimes reviewers will ding you if you do not use the proper reference format. Our final special formatting topic is exhibits, and exhibits only appear within the Muma case review. So for the Muma Business Review, you might have appendices, but you will not have exhibits. Now, exhibits are a little bit different from appendices and from the body of your Muma case review or Muma technical note submission for a number of reasons. First off, it only applies to the Muma case review, both technical notes and cases. Exhibits are numbered sequentially, not surprisingly. They should use the exhibit style for the title. The exhibit style is actually a heading 2 style with an underline and a little bit of other formatting added to it. But that's how it should be designated. The formatting rules for exhibits are somewhat relaxed, and part of the reason for this is that when you're creating an exhibit, you're often trying to create something that looks as authentic as possible. So if you're bringing stuff in from other sources, properly referenced of course, then what you're going to want to do is keep the formatting close to the original, even if that formatting is inconsistent with the templates. And that's okay because the exhibits are at the very end of the case, and they are the things that the reader of a case study or the reader of a technical note is going to refer to. And one of the most important things about exhibit, and something we see problematic a lot, is that exhibits must be referenced within the text. If you've got an exhibit 3 at the back of your case or technical note, then there must be an exhibit 3 referred to in the text. You can't just add exhibits because you think they're interesting and leave them out of the text. And that pretty much is the conclusion of this brief video on preparing manuscripts for Muma Business Review and the Muma Case Review.